Hello, I'm Robert, fact-checking stories that scare you. And this is to help people who are scared of what seems like the double peak in the United States. So they're sort of saying, oh, we spent all this time under lockdown, now we come out, it's just going up again, and it seems like we've done nothing. So I want to explain that this is actually not really what it seems. It is a mix of 4 different peaks. So let's come down and find them. So there's the northeast, where it is being controlled. It's going up like that, down and down. Then there's the midwest, where it's going down and it seems going up a little bit. Then there's the south, where it was never controlled, and it's just going up again at the end of the lockdown. And it's the east, the same thing. The west, it's the same thing. It's never really got controlled, now it's going up. So the northeast shows that it can be done. But these ones, they're obviously not doing things quite right. So this is not really one peak, it's one that's doing it right, the northeast. It's another one that's not doing it right at all, and there's one in the middle that's doing it partly right. It's a mix of the two. So this is 2 curves, it's not just one curve. The up is in a different place from this bit. This peak is in a different part of the United States from this peak. That's in the northeast, that's in the west and the south. And then if you go and look at this map, you can see as well from the map. Then you can see that these blue areas when it's decreasing, the red areas where it's increasing. It's big increases in Florida, and the red, it's coloured not according to the size of the population, but how fast it's increasing. That's increased from 6.5 to 30. If you go all the way west to California, then none of the counties in California have decreasing cases. They're all increasing. Every single county, or there's hardly anyone there. So there are a few. No, that's Nevada. That's not even in. No, I don't think there are any. There's but that's one county. Siskiyou County in California has few or no cases. So there are still some counties in California that have hardly any cases, but all the ones with cases, they are increasing. Now, as you move further to the east, then you get these little patches, or further north there's a little patch there where it's decreasing in Oregon. Even if you go to Arizona, then there's a county with a decrease. That's Santa Cruz County gone from 64 down to 34. And here's another one, Apache County. They're doing things right. So the rest of Arizona has to learn to do whatever those counties are doing, because they are doing it right. But this one has a huge increase. Wait, see if I can find the one. That's one of a lot of it is happening there. Nearly a 3-fold increase in Maricopa County in Arizona. Indeed, if you look at the Arizona dashboard, that is marked out as being by far the biggest problem there. Okay, about 3/4 of their cases are happening there. There you can see what is happening in Arizona, and it's going up and up and up. And it's just back in 13th of April, even if you go to 7th of May, it was less than 600 on the end of May, and now in June it's gone up to 3,000, and that's cases per day. Now you get these are probably reporting patterns, but it looks almost like it's coming down again there, but some of that may be that the case is just not reported yet. So now it is possible, if you're optimistic, it's possible that all these are just blips. So it's really just going to continue, it could level off and be more like that, continuing with just a big blip, a big spike there. The way that could be is because this virus is spread mainly through super spreading events. So you will have 9 people who don't give it to anyone, and then 1 person who gives it to 20 people. That's just how it works. And the super spreading events are when that one person is in a group of other people and they're very close to each other and they're shouting at each other from within 1 metre, or singing or laughing, or being kind of raucous, and that is just the sort of thing that people probably did at the end of lockdown if the governor didn't properly explain to them, if they didn't have the proper public explanation, public education thing saying don't do this. Make sure you can celebrate lockdown but keep the 1 metre rule, and ideally a bit more than that even if you're in a very raucous situation, but 1 metre is enough. Now you can find some little thing to kind of throw on the top of a pen. So if you were just kind of coughing, then the way you infect other people is you go like that, like that, or talking, and the air just doesn't come out that fast. And the little droplets that spread a long way don't carry the virus. And so you just got something that goes like this. Just watch the top of this pen. And my laptop is there. You can't actually see my laptop, but like there. I just throw it like this. Hardly goes any distance. And if I try and throw it at the speed of a cough, it's still not going to go very far. And even if you had a cough which is quite explosive, I'm just guessing at the speed there. But you can see from that the big droplets, they just fall under gravity. We can't even see them, but they're still big enough to fall under gravity. And so they fall to the ground before they reach the other person, so long as you're 1 metre apart, which is, like arms, leg, a little bit more. If you can reach out and touch the other person, you're too far away, you're too close. That's a kind of reasonable way of keeping 1 metre away. And just if you're a little bit more further away than that, if you can't touch them and you're a little bit further away, and don't go up to shake hands, don't do elbow bumps, that brings you closer to hand waves or hand to a heart or something. If you do that, then you are far enough away and the droplets won't get to you. And unlike flu, it doesn't get to you by breathing. You might still get flu, you might get a cold, but you won't get COVID-19. Very hard for it to get to you. Then the other way, even if you're surrounded by surfaces that are covered in COVID-19, it doesn't go through your skin. So you have to touch a surface, then bring it to your face by touching your eyes, nose or mouth, places where there's contact with the mucus inside your body, where there are cells that it can infect. It can go in at your eye and give you an infection, so wearing a mask won't protect you because if you are too close to people. The reason for a mask is to protect others from your coughs and sneezes. But if you, and those little things being thrown, like big little balls that are coming out of your mask, but too small to see, and fall under gravity. And if you're very close, then they'll land up in someone's eyes, nose and mouth, but they're so small they don't even feel them. But they're still big enough to fall under gravity. So that's what you've got to protect against. So if everyone did that, then that would be enough to suppress it. You wash your hands carefully. Dr. Tedros went to Wuhan, and he went and visited the worst places in Wuhan on the 23rd of January, along with other people from the WHO, right at the height of it. And then they had another expedition with joint WHO experts, and the Chinese went again, and went around all the worst places in China, which by then had spread to other places, spent 1.5 days in Wuhan, and came away again. They didn't get it. And yes, they wore masks, but they didn't have any coverings over their eyes, and they just wore the masks because they had to. And what protected them was the physical distancing, just what I described. And so if you do this, you could walk into Wuhan at the height of the outbreak, and some parts of the United States are as bad as that, but it doesn't matter so long as you do this protection. So do wash your hands thoroughly, learn how to wash all of your hands, the back, the front, between the fingers, around the fingers, the fingernails. There's a special thing, I'm doing a bit of it, but and then your thumbs, to do that bit at the end. Follow the Dr. Tedros shows you how to do it, so just follow along what he does, is do it at the same time. It'll soon become automatic. And then wash your hands like that. And don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth unless you've washed your hands. And then your risk of getting COVID-19 is very low. It's zero really, but if you had some accident where someone spoke up close, or you accidentally touched your eyes, nose and mouth or something, then you would likely get very little of the virus. And it is a known thing for things like SARS, MERS and probably for COVID-19, that if you get a low dose of the virus, you probably get a mild version of the disease, according to WHO experts. They haven't got this confirmed, but it is very likely. So do the proper physical distancing, and you can do the job that maybe your state governor isn't doing for you. And then if anyone, and then you wouldn't get it. But then if you did get it, and you've been doing the contact tracing since you got it, then you'll be able to say, I haven't got any contacts because I stayed more than 1 meter away from them. So then you won't be able to pass it on to anyone else. And so we could stop it just by very, very good public education. Very compliant public who do what they're told. But no country has ever succeeded in stopping it that way. Public is just too careless, too lazy, they just don't think. That you can't expect everyone to have the care of an epidemiological expert visiting Wuhan. So Dr. Tedros, he's a doctorate in epidemiology. He's a top expert, and the people like that, if they're very clued up about COVID-19, they know what to do. And the reason this happened at all in Arizona, the only reason this happened at all anywhere in the States, is because they didn't listen to the WHO. On the 23rd of January, then I've been doing some more searching, and I tried to find the first time that Dr. Tedros warned the world about contact tracing and about doing surveillance testing in the community. And as far as I can tell, it's the 23rd of January, just after he'd done his visit there. And he had this public statement to the world. He told all the countries, he said, you must prepare to rapidly increase in contact tracing. You must prepare to be able to isolate people, know how to do it. You must start, as soon as you've got any cases in your country, you should start testing in your community to try and see if you've got any community spread. The only country that listened to that bit, as far as I can tell, is Singapore. 5 days later, on the 28th of January, they started testing everyone in the country who had flu-like symptoms. So Singapore just can't miss a little outbreak. But the United Kingdom still hadn't done that. March the 11th, when it finally gave up and stopped testing and tracing in the community at all. It never did this testing of people with flu-like symptoms that Dr. Tedros recommended on the 23rd of January. And the United States hadn't done it by the 3rd of March, when it had only done an average of 20 tests per state. So they had no idea where COVID-19 was, and that's why it did the lockdown. And this is the only situation where you need to do an entire countrywide or statewide lockdown, is when you haven't got a clue where the virus is. At that point, the United States had no idea where it was. It could be anywhere. So they just did the emergency measure. Now they could have done it by public education. They could have just said to everyone, do this physical distancing, but that is sadly not effective enough. So they had to force it. So they said to everyone, you've got to stay at home. And then it's much easier to check compliance, because people aren't leaving their houses. If they are, it's obvious, and all their neighbours notice and so on. And so that's the reason for a lockdown. It's the same idea as physical distancing, but you force it on people because you know they won't do it if you just let them wander around doing the ordinary things that they normally do, and say you've got to keep 1 meter distance. Then at least 50%, 75%, probably maybe even 90% just won't do that. So that's the reason for the lockdown. As we come out of lockdown, then if we can do the physical distancing, then we can still stop it. So in Arizona, then quite possibly that may be why you've got this one county down there. Let's see if I can find it again. There we are. This little one. It's going down. And so they may be doing the physical distancing properly. They may also be doing testing and tracing and isolating properly. If they've only got 34 cases, and if they're testing and tracing enough people, they might be able to keep in hand. But sadly, although the United States has got quite a lot, it's got loads and loads of tests in New York, it's got very few tests in Arizona, and the tests come back sometimes a week late. And they've got very few contact tracers in Arizona, and California's the same, not enough tests, not enough contact tracers, although it's somewhat better than, it's quite a lot better than Arizona in that respect. But it's probably not doing the physical distancing properly. You see, there isn't a single state in Arizona that is doing it right. So that's that. So you get these occasional, so the second wave is entirely due to, at this point, it's entirely due to people taking their eye off the ball. But we now know where it is. So, for instance, in Arizona, and they know that it is this particular county, Maricopa County is the worst. So, if they have to do a lockdown again, and I think there's no way that Arizona, so it's been very much a case of complacency and parochialism. So you get you've got China saying to the world, look, it's awful here. You've got to do this. You've got Dr. Tedros saying to the world, you've absolutely got to start getting prepared to have this increasing tracing, increasing testing. You've got to test in the community, and then UK says, oh, we're all right. We're doing fine. And then they start having their first case and say, it's a mild thing. We're only having mild versions. And we kept on getting in the news, so-and-so has got the mild version of COVID-19. But it's always mild at the beginning. And then, so it's very deceptive. And then they start saying, oh, we've got a few deaths. It's not looking so good. And then, way back then, China and WHO, and then eventually other countries that were affected, like South Korea, they're saying, be careful, watch out for your care homes, watch out for your psychiatric wards, watch out for your hospitals, they need special care. And then in Scotland, in even April, May, then people were saying, they weren't really taking proper care of the care homes, and when eventually it became realised what the big problem it was, they said, we now realise with hindsight that we made mistakes back then, but there's no way we could have known. That's being incredibly parochial, just looking at your own little country and not looking at any other country. They had people from Italy, just in March saying to them, don't do what we've done. And yet the UK just went ahead and did exactly what Italy did. And worse, they just stopped all the testing and tracing. And that's the same thing happening in the United States. So that seems awful, that's very sad, but at the same time it's good in a way, because what's happening, it means that Arizona is definitely going to stop. It's definitely going to start to control it. It's got to widen its parochial vision a bit. Just a bit. It's very focused just on Arizona. It's looking at what's happening there, and the governor there is just saying, oh, everything's fine, nothing's going wrong. Same in California. And they're just not looking at what happened in New York. And then in a week or two, they're going to run out of intensive care unit space. The scientists can predict this, the experts can predict it, but you have to influence the politicians and convince the politicians that what you're predicting is a real life thing with real life consequences, and that they've got to do something. And they just keep saying, oh, it's fine, we're doing fine, there's nothing we can do anyway. But then when it gets to the point where you start getting lots of people dying in care homes and not enough intensive care units, that's when it really hits home, and that's when they do control it, and that's happening around the world. just this very parochial thinking where sadly countries don't react until it's too late. They keep on saying, oh, we're fine, and then suddenly they've discovered they're not. And then the deceptive thing about this is that there's such a long delay between when you are infected and when you show symptoms. There's an incubation period of up to 2 weeks. Half the people don't show any symptoms until at least 5 days after they're infected, and then they start off very mild for the first week, as I said. So many people won't be even thinking they've got anything very much. They've got a bit of a cough, but they don't pay too much attention, and many of them don't even get a cough. It's not everyone who gets a cough. The majority do, but quite a lot don't. Some lose their sense of taste or smell, and until recently haven't realised that it matters. And this is only 9 days to a fortnight afterwards. They realise they need to be tested, especially if you're in a place where your government is just saying everything's fine. Then it's quite a long delay before you get tested. And then the test has to be processed, and as said in Arizona it can be up to 2 weeks, up to a week before you get a test back. So all that means that the infections in Arizona now, whoever was infected in Arizona today, then it may be up to 2 weeks, it may even be more, before it appears in the daily cases. So once you got to 3,000, they may, but then it could just be a blip. So I'll just explain, it could just be a blip. That's very optimistic. So if you look at this in a very optimistic way, you say, could it just be a blip? And we don't have enough data. You see it goes up and down, up and down. It seems to have been going down for quite a long time recently. Is it just another one like this? It looks just one extra day, so it's too soon to say. Is it a blip? Is it going to end up being like that? Or is it permanently up? I think it's too soon to say. But if it is increasing at the same rate, and my group per country is just increasing, it's going to keep on increasing, then it'll probably go up to 10,000 before you level off, even if you start controlling it vigorously today. So just no way of knowing about that. But still, if you're in these other states, then the very few cases, only 18 cases there, 92 there. So, and it says the population there, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. Oh, sadly, it doesn't say what the population is. Some of these cases, very few, because there are very few people there anyway. But anyway, so even in Arizona, I think that was the state. Santa Cruz is the one where it's going down, and then this is another one, Navajo. I'm remembering it by the shape. That's got decreasing cases. So, so that's that. So it doesn't look as bad as it like. That's the main thing. Just to recap what I said so far. It's like that, and these cases they can definitely go down again, just like that did. Indeed, as the high population areas get hit, I am just about certain I can't see Arizona going up and up and up and up without eventually reacting like New York did. Remember all those stories about New York and knotting up and desperate people in hospitals and all the nurses and doctors and saying they haven't got enough medicine and running out of intensive care units. Once it gets to that point, then there's no way, and with all their video clips that they'll be sharing on social media saying how desperately difficult it is to treat everyone, that is going to happen in the south and the west at some point. No healthcare system can avoid that except by controlling it. So these states don't seem to have realised that. At some point they will. And so I'm going to talk briefly about masks. Well, if you do everything else right, then you don't need the masks. If you keep the physical distancing, these little droplets are not going to get you unless you are within a metre. The mask is only helpful to protect other people, because, apart from anything else, you can get infected by your eyes, unless you're wearing a complete visor thing. as well as the masks, which very few people are doing, then it's not going to protect you from other people coughing at you, because they're going to get in by your eyes, apart from anything else. Also, the general public don't use masks properly. They're always touching the front of the mask, fiddling with it. And if you do that, then it's very little protection. And in the forward direction, you touch your mask. If you've got it and it's damp, and then you touch a surface or shake hands with someone, you've passed it on maybe more effectively than if you didn't have a mask. So that is why the WHO didn't know if masks would help. It actually turns out they do help, but just a few percent probably. They're not the solution, because we can't train the general public to use a mask like a health worker, sadly. It doesn't seem to be possible. And health workers need them, so they need the clinical masks and ordinary cloth masks for the kind of carelessness that the general public has. Then they're just as good as a clinical mask. And they will stop just about all the your coughs and sneezes particles. Even if someone is within 1 metre, then it'll stop and just stop just about all of that as well. They're quite effective. But if you then touch the front of the mask and then shake hands, then it annuls all that effectiveness, because the front is damp, and then you've shaked hands and they get in their hands, they touch their eyes, nose and mouth, and they've got it. And you'd be better off without a mask if you do that. But generally, if the general public use it, seems on the whole it is beneficial. If you do use a mask, learn to use it properly, put it on around your ears, never touch the front at any point. Wash it in soapy water if it's a washable mask. If it's a cloth mask, wash it in very hot soapy water and put it on around your ears without touching the front after you washed it, in case you've got COVID-19. And then never touch it during the day, and then take it off the same way. And then you're using it properly, and then you are reducing the risk of it infecting other people if you have it. Now, but as I said, you can effectively stop it by doing all this protection properly. So if you do what the WHO do, if you do what Dr. Tedros did when he visited Wuhan, so he didn't protect it with a visor, he wasn't going around wearing a visor. They did wear masks because they were required to, but they protected themselves by distancing. And you can do the same. And if everyone was as careful as Dr. Tedros, then nobody would get COVID-19. You can't say absolutely, but it really is effectively a zero risk. And certainly if everyone was as careful as Dr. Tedros, then it would soon subside, so there are hardly any cases, and then it's gone. If only we could somehow educate the entire world to be as careful as Dr. Tedros or Bruce Aylward, then it would be gone from the world in a few weeks. It would just be gone. But sadly, that's not feasible. But you can certainly do that, and you can educate your friends to do that, and your family to do that. Try to educate them. And so that is something you can do in a small-scale way on your own, by yourself. You can create a little block, like a little roadblock that you can't get through, where you are. And if enough people do that, that would be quite effective in reducing the suppression, in suppressing the virus. It's a combination of good public education, which sadly there maybe hasn't been in the South and West, and the testing and the tracing. And with the public education, that's why it could be a blip, because of these possibilities of the parties. I'm not sure if I'm repeating myself. And the parties, and people having lots of parties and not being told by the governor that this is the risk of a super spreader. So, anyway, I think I've said most of what I want to say. I'll put this at the bottom, which shows the. Did I explain about it being? I'm not sure. Yeah, I explained about how it's because it's not a lockdown. Because we now know where it is. If we do have to do a lockdown, so the reason we do a lockdown is because people aren't doing the physical distancing properly, and then, but we can localise it down to the counties that have a large number of cases and increasing, and then public education for the rest, and the testing and tracing, and then try and ramp up everything else, and then localized lockdowns, and that is a way to suppress it now. And I really do expect you will get localized lockdowns again, because it's clear that Arizona, for instance, its lockdown was never strict enough. People must have been a bit lax and not doing it quite right, or they had too many exceptions, and they just didn't do the right kind of things. So some things, people have been, so for instance, been a big focus on shopping, and lots of shops been shut down. There's no actual evidence that it's spread through shopping. There's certainly no super spreader outbreaks through shopping, except for special things like maybe a tattoo parlor. Certainly, if you're rubbing essential oils, then an outbreak in South Korea was caused by that. Or was that Singapore? I can't remember which one that was. I think that was Singapore. One of the Singapore clusters was due to the proprietor rubbing essential oils on the customer's arms, and then got it from the customer. He must have touched their eyes, nose and mouth after that. And the customer must have obviously got from their arm or something. So, but it is very difficult to spread through shopping. It's entirely possible. So the lockdown measures were not evidence-based. They didn't say, oh, it's proven to spread through shops, so we've got to shut down shops. They said, hypothetically, maybe it can spread through shops. We'd better close down everything because we don't know how it spreads. That is how they did the lockdowns. So some of the lockdowns were maybe not even needed. It's entirely possible that the shops didn't need to close. And so that when we start getting these limited lockdowns, maybe they will be more targeted through having more knowledge of how it spreads. And a targeted lockdown stopping the super spreader events, something like a pub or a cafe is a more likely place for a super spreader event, to be very careful, because you've got people very close to each other, turning to each other on the same table and shouting. And so in that situation, then passing the salt cellar around, that situation definitely needs care. But care homes need a great deal of care. An awful lot of the spreading happens through care homes. So if the focus, so I expect they'll have focused lockdowns that are more focused on situations where they know you get spreading from COVID-19, where you do have super spreader events. If they focus on those, then they mightn't need so much of the other lockdowns. It mightn't even be necessary. The shops might never have been necessary. I don't think anyone's got any study to be able to calibrate whether closing shops down was needed. It's an extraordinary thing, major economic effect with no scientific evidence for it. They just had to guess. There wasn't any science behind it. There was hypothetical science, working out theoretically, experimentally, it just might be possible that you could spread it to someone in a shop, because if we do the experiments in a laboratory, but you can't ethically do it with human beings, then it seems possible that you might be able to spread it in a shop, but not evidence that it is spreading in any major way through shops in any of the outbreaks to date. I don't think there are any examples of it spreading in a major way through shops. So it wasn't really evidence-based. It was mainly kind of saying we've got to stop everything because we don't know how it's spreading for sure, and we don't know where it is. It does spread in some meat packing factories. They obviously need care. So if we do a re-lockdown, then hopefully they will focus more on the places where it's known to do super spreading, and that might well be enough. Now that we know where it is, and we have a better idea of how it spreads, although some of this was known in January, then we can have much more targeted lockdowns. And then if in some cases you might need to lock down an entire town or city if it's a really bad outbreak where you just can't figure out how it's spreading. That's what Japan did. They didn't know how it was spreading in Tokyo, I think. So they had a major lockdown and got it that way. So Anyway, so it's not nearly as bad. Some of this, so in short summary, some of this could be blips. We don't know. It's far too soon. Could be that Arizona is just going to naturally blip and come down again. I haven't heard people saying that, but I mean, it just works out, that if it was because of people being careless with parties and super spreader events back then, and that's what caused all this, then so long as they've stopped, as long as they're now paying more attention, they only did the super spreader event because it was the demonstrations, but not just that. There weren't enough people in the demonstrations for it really to be that. But maybe demonstration and celebrating coming out of lockdown, and then repeated demonstrations maybe. I think maybe some kind of reaction to that. So if it was some super spreader event, a couple of weeks ago, is causing this, and Memorial Day caused that, and then super spreader event, and then if that has now stopped already, then that it would level off with that number, and then gradually start coming down, and it wouldn't just clip down, but it would even more level off, because you already got that number infected in the community. But then if you have very, very strict measures come in, people really do respond to the physical distancing requirements, and then you have much better testing and tracing, it can come down pretty much as fast as it went up. It can come down like New York did. It can come down like that. So you could have that in Arizona. It could go up like that, down and down. On the other hand, if whatever causes it kept going, it'll just go up to 10,000, then it'll come down. So, but meanwhile, so there's one more thing to say. We're back on this map. Just to say that if you are in a rural area of the United States, then you've probably got hardly any cases. The grey areas here have got none or very few. Not enough to have cases per day. So if you're in one of these counties, your risk is very low. And then, as I said, nearly everyone recovers from it. And if you do the proper physical distancing and so on, you do reduce your risk of getting a very severe version of it, even if you did have a lapse, because it seems that the severity to some extent depends on how much you get. It's not a strict correlation, but they don't know for sure for COVID-19, but it is for SARS and MERS, and it's quite likely for COVID-19 that people who get infected with less virus, if you get less virus, most often you don't get it at all. Your body defeats it before it even comes into your body and starts, before it even notices it. It takes an awful lot of virus to actually get into the first cell. And then once if it does get in, but you've only got a small amount of virus comparatively, then you tend to get a milder version of the disease. The entire progression of the disease from then on is milder, because your body gets more chance to deal with it as it spreads. And then it's only if you get an awful lot at once, then, like you're talking to someone in close quarters for 15 minutes or more, but talking maybe even more than that, and then a lot of shouting and laughing in close quarters, then you might get quite a severe version of it. But that's not strictly. It's not like if you get a small amount, you're definitely going to be fine, and if you get a large amount, you're definitely going to have severe cases. It's not like that, but there's some correlation that if you have less of it, then you're less likely to have a severe case. At least that's what happened with SARS and MERS, and I think it's probably the situation for COVID-19. So doing all this physical distancing, and even if you have occasional lapses, it's very unlikely to get to you, because it takes quite a lot of virus usually just to get started, and then even if you still have lapses, even if it does get to you, you're more likely to have a milder version. And then nearly everyone does recover from this anyway. Even old people over 80, then 80% recover. And for young people, then you're talking about 99.9 or 99.8% recovery. And then for under 20, almost everyone. For me, under 40 is young. So if you're under 40, you're a young thing, and you're going to get, you're likely to have, a couple in 1,000 is the risk of dying. But hospitalising is quite, you can get quite sick and be in hospital. There's a much higher chance of that if you're young. But if you're very young, if you're under 20, then you've got an exceedingly low chance of getting it. If you're a little 20, even a teenager, or if you're 20-something, you've got a very low risk. Anyway, now I'll stop. Hopefully you're a bit, some of you a little bit less, just itchy ear. I don't have COVID-19 anyway, there's no COVID-19 in my room. But that is okay. If you get itchy ear, don't worry about that, like I just had. That's not going to infect you. You can't be infected through your ears. So if you really find it very difficult to avoid touching your face at all, then you can maybe try and learn to scratch yourself in different places, but not your eyes, nose and mouth. Then that might help. That might make things a bit easier. It doesn't matter if you scratch all over your face. You can do that if you like. As long as you don't touch your eyes, nose and mouth, then you are okay. As far, and then wash your hands very thoroughly before you touch your eyes, nose and mouth. And that's how to do your physical distancing. And the physical distancing and wearing a mask if needs be. But remember, the main thing is you're protecting other people, unless you are a health worker or caring for someone at home. Anyway, so I'll stop now. So just a reminder, if you found this helpful, then do subscribe, do like this video. Remember our Facebook group, Doomsday Debunked, to help people who are scared of all these things. And if you're knowledgeable yourself, have direct knowledge, or if you're a good fact checker, then very welcome there. Be sure to, when you're helping people, to help them according to things that you know and not just guess. Because just guessing when someone is scared is not very helpful. And just guessing whether, say, it's something to worry about when you don't know, or it is something to worry about when again you don't know. We don't want, those are not very helpful ways to respond. But reassuring someone to say, I've been through that before, I get scared, or if you actually know, or trying to find, or if you know someone else in the group who can provide a debunk, or you know how to go and find, to search up the information yourself, then that is very helpful. Anyway, so I will stop now, and I'll upload this to YouTube and to Facebook and to Twitter and so on. Anyway, here goes.